Hello, friends. Welcome to Wake Up and Think Clearly. Don't think twice about it. Just join us.
Hello, friends. I've gathered for you clips from several sessions from July 11th, the first 3 minutes, from August 1st, the first 6 minutes, from August 20th, that was a Thursday, that was 6 minutes from almost 11-minute mark to the almost 17-minute mark. August 22nd, 8 minutes, that's from the almost the 6-minute mark to the 14-minute mark. Then on June 27th, the first almost 8 minutes of the session called Boltzmann's Concept of Reality in one part, 245 minutes. So that's the first almost 8 minutes of that, June 27th. But that same session, June 27th, it was split up into 4 parts, and I uploaded part 4, and from part 4 I took the first 5 minutes. That part is called Concepts, Models, and Representations of Reality in 4 parts, part 4. That's premiering September 20th on the YouTube channel Wake Up and Think Clearly. These are all up on that channel. Then the final clip is from September 12th, 11 minutes. That's from the 17-minute mark to the 38-minute mark, approximately. That video is called It Is What It Is, Absolute Reality. I'm showing the gallery view. The YouTube version is showing the speaker view. I will put the dates of where the clips are from. That way you can go find the full versions. And I will also have links to the full versions in the description of the YouTube video.
Good morning. It's perfect time for thinking right.
Great time for meditation. That's what
Indeed.
we're doing. We're meditating out loud.
Yes. This is so important for a lot of people that are so stressed out, so depressed, so afraid. Nowadays, especially with COVID, they can't stay. Everything sucks. Everything is scary, and there's nothing like a good conversation with a couple of friends, and to put things in perspective. This is so relaxing.
Wake up and think clearly. You like that?
Yeah. Okay. So here we go.
Why do we need to wake up?
Because we're asleep, obviously.
And why do we need to think clearly?
We don't need to.
Oh,
It's not mandatory. There's no universal law that says that we have to wake up. As a matter of fact, look at all the millions of people that live life like, duh. Yeah, it's not a mandatory thing. It's not a necessary thing either. It's just different. It's just different.
Is it better?
Different. I contend that it's better, but a lot of people, when you start talking about this, their eyes glaze over. It's like, oh my God, it's fucking boring. So I guess it's up to the individual. So yeah, it's almost a bias or a preference. It's a good question. Is it better to be enlightened or is it better to be asleep? So I would refer you to the Buddha and the Four Noble Truths. Look around you, and do you see happy people? Do you see happy people out there?
How can one tell that someone is happy?
You just ask him.
Oh, I'm gonna go around asking people, "Are you happy?" and see what I get.
Right.
Oh, and I'll video record them and then put it on my YouTube channel, Buddhism for Happiness.
486-8642. That's 407-486-8642.
And the password?
No password. Welcome, friends. It's another session of.
Do we have somebody else? Oh no, you're just greeting everybody. You're greeting me.
It's another session of Wake Up and Smell the Roses. Oh no, Wake Up and Think Clearly. Wake up and think clearly. Or maybe it should be the other way around. It should be think clearly and wake up. Because if we
smell the roses.
And if we don't think clearly, we can't wake up. Or can we? Or does it require thinking to wake up? Or can one wake up without thinking clearly?
That's a very good question. Actually, thinking is of the mind, and enlightening and waking up is of the mind too. So you need both. I was reading this guy, Wessel Zampe, and he says that we are the mystery, thinking of itself. So it takes a mind to think about the mind. So waking up is a mental thing, and mind is a mental thing.
So what is the mind doing while it's not woken up? What is it doing?
It's rehearsing. It's reorganizing data, just reformatting, or no, not reformatting. What do you do to a hard drive when you clean it up? See, it takes the data and it organizes it. What's the name for that? Have you ever done that to your hard drive?
Yes, I did that yesterday, but then I decided to format the drive. Let's see, what's it called?
Well, formatting is a different thing.
Defragmenting.
So when we go to sleep, the brain is defragmenting, because the mind is all those little things that are floating around the memory, the hard drive, and the hard memory and the RAM memory. That is the mind. The combination and interplay of a whole bunch of data.
And then what happens when we dream?
Same thing. It's a dream. Dreaming is the mind trying to make sense of its own experience. That's why the dreams are so weird, because we are kind of inventing reality, trying to unlock the mystery of reality. So dreaming is an effort of the mind to make sense of its own experience. In a sense, dreaming is meditation.
Dreaming is meditation?
Yes.
Oh. And what is meditation?
Meditation is meta thinking, which is the mind thinking about itself and its processes,
The mind
trying
thinking
to
about itself.
understand itself. And of course, because the mind is reality, look at itself. When you try to understand yourself, you're trying to understand the world. Because there's no essential distinction between the in and the out. The distinction is artificial, rational. It's like I'm here, you're there. But essentially, there's no here or there. There's only one monad.
Did you say, when I asked what is dreaming, then you came to the conclusion that dreaming is like meditation? And then what is meditation?
Because meditation is the mind trying to understand itself. Vipassana, mindfulness meditation. It is relaxing, of course. You're just, inside yourself, you have a tendency to relax. Or you should be able to relax, because if not, it's not real meditation. It's masturbation. But any meta thinking, just thinking about thinking, is a meditation. And dreaming, obviously, is the mind just reorganizing itself, images, sensations, feelings, intuitions, the collective unconscious trying to make sense of itself. So it is a meditation. This is the first time I verbalized that, but I stand by my statement.
But if it's trying to make sense, how come it doesn't make sense, the dreams that one has?
Reality ultimately
does not
have reality does not have a consciousness of itself. So the mind is an instrument, an organismic instrument through which reality sees itself with a certain degree of clarity.
Is how do we make a world, by that I mean like a human world, where everyone's got a good shot at living to their fullest. That's it. I've already put a bunch of ideas in, and if anyone has any questions, you can review that. Some other people may have their own ideas. You're certainly welcome to share them. I don't think there's any further agenda beyond that. And with that, I'm going to say
could you repeat the proposition or the goal or the aim?
Yeah, the proposition is how do we have a county or a state or a nation or a world where everyone's got a chance to thrive?
Well, I got something to say regarding that. In order for anybody to thrive, they have to ask questions. When you ask questions, you learn information. And without asking questions, you don't learn anything at all. The thing is, I think the biggest one of the problems that we have in our society today is everybody dictates to everybody else without having enough questions to actually learn what people are thinking, so that we can share our experiences and our understanding and also our knowledge with one another. It becomes more of a situation where what I say is right and what you say is wrong. And without questioning and trying to understand each other, we all fall into that sort of dictatorship world.
Excellent.
Who do we ask questions to? Each other? And do we wait for the answer? And what if there's no answer?
Well, the thing is, I remember you a couple of weeks ago on our Saturday morning meetup type of thing. Jairo had mentioned about meditating on the meditation, and clearly what to me that is a person taking and examining their own thoughts and taking and processing those with understanding. And to me, the best thing to do is ask ourselves questions. And the thing is, with the internet the way it is, we can take and pursue those questions quite readily today in a time that it's never been possible like it is today. And the thing is, and then come to some kind of a conclusion within ourselves, and then ask questions to others regarding that to sort of get some kind of verification or further understanding of even what we're meditating on. Because when you said that one day, I'm thinking to myself, it sort of threw me for a loop, but then I started thinking about it and I thought, well, that there is really, really something to consider. And it's something basically we all do all the time anyway. You know, we'll be sitting there thinking over and over about some kind of a topic that may be in our mind, and we're really meditating on our meditations, you know, which is a good idea. And I think that's where our questions should actually begin. And actually, that's probably where they do begin.
I think that people ask questions, but questions vary from culture to culture. So they are asking other type of questions and getting their information according to their culture and their values and their priorities and their groups.
Well, in my own meditations of myself, I go back and study the Greek culture. I study the Roman culture. I look at the culture that we live in today, and there's many cultures within inside of our culture that all these things exist. And I think it's up to each individual to allow their mind to pursue whatever cultures that are at the forefront of their thoughts and bring them into communion and discussion with others.
Well, I think the problem nowadays is not so much that people aren't asking questions and even listening to the answers, but they're really not listening to the answers. They're coloring those answers. I mean, we all color our answers, through our filters. But nowadays, it's really, we only listen to part and parcel of them, of the answers. And we decide beforehand what the person's going to say, and that's it. And
well, that's part of the human nature, I think. I find that through our culture, we've sort of been groomed to do that sort of thing. I know sometimes I ask my wife certain things, and I'm wanting her to expect her to respond in certain ways, but if she doesn't understand the dictation or the understanding, she comes off with something different. And it works vice versa too. I think that people are sort of groomed to do that sort of thing. And the older you are, the more we are groomed into, certain ideologies and beliefs, and, through repetition, they become our life.
The only reality is perception. Facts are negotiable. Perception is not. And that's what
individually, that's true.
What was that?
Individually, that is true.
Yeah.
What is it asking?
Unfortunately, it's gotten really, really bad that way, I think.
It's not applicable.
Let me think about how enlightened I am this morning. That don't happen. I get up and I'm thinking about, oh man, should I get up and make coffee, or do I have some coffee left from yesterday?
See how, this already just brings so many perspectives, so many questions, and relevant questions. What are you thinking about? What are you looking at? What are your goals? How do you feel? Because at the end of the day, it's like, how do you feel? And how can you describe how you feel and what you feel versus what I feel, and how and how can we put words to it, descriptions?
Okay, that's a good idea. Let's take and go around and share with each other, okay, what's been on our mind, what we've been processing on our mind this past week, because we go from Saturday to Saturday. And obviously, there's things that you think about and stuff that, cross your mind that is good to verbalize. And this is a good way to do it. We could take turns doing it, And if you want to go first, go ahead, Luis.
Well, this week has been, so what have you done all week? Well, I've been working. I work 50 hours a week. 50 hours a week. But do I want to talk about that? I can say the week was rather challenging.
But was there something during the week that really sort of popped out that made you think about it?
This type of questions?
What?
I'm sorry. What was that question again?
I say, was there something in this past week that really made you think about some kind of enlightenment or?
Yes.
Something. Did you study something? Did you read an article? Did you hear something at work? Did you have a conversation with somebody at?
Yes.
At your work?
That's me anymore. People will ask somebody else, "Do you meditate?" I say, "Yeah, I meditate 3 times a week, 20 minutes." But if you ask me, "Do you meditate?" I would say I'm a walking meditation. I can't stop meditating anymore.
I'm like that too.
I can't stop thinking about these subjects. So the whole week I've been reading, listening, and studying, and the highlight would be I started reading a book by Colin Wilson. I never heard about him in my life. Never heard of him, in my life. Apparently a guy, Colin Wilson, was a young writer, an outsider. He wrote the book The Outsider in 1950, when was it? 1956, I think it was, somewhere around there. An obscure guy, and he was 25 when he wrote it, and he published it, and it became a bestseller, The Outsider. This guy, I immediately saw something about him. I don't know how I found him. Actually, I think I found him on LinkedIn. Somebody mentioned something or someone. I don't know. Either the book or the guy. So immediately I became interested, very curious anymore. Anything that I hear that I don't know about, boom, I'm already all over it. I Google like crazy until I go to the bottom of it. So very interesting character, very young guy, wrote a book, made him famous overnight. And it happens to be a phenomenal deep thinker. And I've been immersed in his interviews and a few things that he has. He's written a lot. A lot of the stuff he wrote is not interesting to me, but some of the things he wrote were very interesting to me. And I discovered a book by him called The New Existentialism. New Existentialism. By this guy Colin Wilson, and I am in the thick of it. It's absolutely beautiful. It helps me verbalize concepts and ideas that I already have in my mind when I try to explain to people that ask existential questions or questions about their life and why this, why that, and in my website, that I have this transversal kind of perspective, looking at things from different ways. Two basic perspectives, which is the conventional perspective: wake up in the morning, make coffee, go to work, pay the bills, change the tires, see what's going on in the news, and then the non-conventional perspective, which is what we try to talk about here, which is kind of a what's right, what's wrong, what's beautiful, what's not, how does it feel to me, what is it to be or not to be. And this guy, in some of the stuff that I read in his book, is just absolutely beautiful. He makes comparisons in the Second World War. The British bombers needed to destroy some structures, and they had to be at a right altitude to do so. And they didn't know how to precisely measure the distance from the floor. At that time, they didn't have the accurate equipment, of course. And somebody came up with the idea of having 2 beams of light, one in the nose of the plane, the other one in the tail, just shining light at a certain angle. So they would make a triangle. And of course, knowing the length of the plane and the angle, they would know the height of the triangle. So when the two beams of light, when the plane was too high, there were two dots on the floor. But when it was at the right altitude, they would connect into one dot. This imagery that he gives in that book is precisely what I describe when I say conventional and not conventional perspective. Two views, two different beams of light looking at the same object, which is the ground. And through those two perspectives, one knows another thing. So that's my week in a word. I've been, besides working 50 hours and putting out many fires, working the problems of, problems with customers, technical things that need to be solved, office problems, internal politics, HR issues, my boss going crazy.
That's a great perspective, because what it does, it causes you to think, and I know you think in a broad way of how life is like that too, where you take and measure things by different angles and look at it in different ways. It almost is sort of.
He was trying to make science more open-minded, less dogmatic. And he was trying to get scientists to say, okay, so you don't like this theory and you like that theory. So that doesn't mean you should let go of this theory because
of either of them.
It's what?
Both of them have their value and their perspective. They can describe reality as a whole from a different angle.
Yes, each theory is what is
not completely right and not completely wrong.
Each theory is like a representation of reality, because you can't say that a theory is reality. Each theory is a representation.
Very good. So
is our a helpful image or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
To help us understand reality, to help us use reality, to help mankind deal with reality, but it's not reality. So we should
itself
a theory with reality and say, okay, this is the best reality. So we should erase all the.
That is correct. So you got it.
All realities, even the reality, the theory of that the Earth is flat. That could be considered a reality that works for
a very short distance.
I can see.
Yeah.
It works for us. So.
That's right. The Earth is flat as far as you're concerned. If you only look at the 100 square feet.
Even in the early Buddhist, or there's the practice of offering the world to the Buddhas, and it imagines the reality or the earth as something like a flat table, and there's things on top of it and things underneath it.
Right. So you got the gist of it for sure. But one thing that I really liked about that was precisely that openness, that what I call quite often anymore perspectivism. Because one of the problems that the human mind has in understanding reality is a narrow scope. So if we look at things too closely, too narrowly, we miss the big picture. And then we make decisions that are inappropriate. We get all uptight. We don't have this flexibility of perspective. So that's the first thing. Relax. It is what it is. Reality is what it is. Let's look at it from a distance. Let's not get too close to it, because then we get the tanha, the thirst feeling for being a non-being, for the sensory. We get too attached to our sensory impressions, and we are not able to detach. In French, they say prendre du recul, to step back look at reality and be able to study it in all its wholeness, in oneness, in its integrity. So when we do that, we're able to better, I would say, deliberate, better think, better cognate, and not make mistakes with our emotions and impulses. So this anti-dogmatism, this push towards perspectivism, openness, flexibility of views, is something that I really right away connected. I connected with. It is very reminiscent of E.O. Wilson, who talks about consilience. I always mention it because he says that one cannot know anything from only one perspective. In order to know something very well, you have to use a variety of different perspectives and sciences, different angles, so you know it well, you understand it fully. So in that regard, I was already making the parallel. So openness of views, this diversification of your perspectives in understanding anything in this universe that is infinite and eternal. So I found it extremely refreshing. Now we have to understand too that this Boltzmann guy was under a lot of duress because he had it clear in his mind that the universe was made of tiny atoms. And that went against the pervading scientific view that the universe was energy, but it was not quantized. So he had a very big battle, because in his mind he was absolutely convinced that gases, for example, which was his big stuff, were composed of very tiny particles, molecules. And atoms, I don't know if he knew the distinction between atoms and molecules. I don't know. I haven't studied enough in that. But he knew that things were broken down into individual little particles. And he hypothesized that the temperature of a gas in a specific place was directly due to the kinetic energy of each one of the particles. And he did averages and computations. And he came to the conclusion that within a certain volume, with a certain amount of molecules flying around or moving around the space, it would be determining the pressure, the temperature, and he could compute the average speed of movement of a molecule in the air, and the speeds are staggering at room temperature. I just read this morning that a molecule of nitrogen travels at 900 and something feet per second, or something crazy. I mean, extremely high speeds on an average. And of course, because they're so small, when they impact us, because right now there's air molecules impacting on my skin, they are so small that we only feel the average kinetic energy of the whole trillions of molecules flying around us. And that average of that kinetic energy gives the temperature of the room at the given pressure. That is phenomenal. 100 and some years ago, this guy was already in his mind understanding this dynamic play of molecules and particles, and everybody was looking at it like he was absolutely crazy.
Oh, you mentioned consilience.
So just
Can you hear me?
Yes.
The favorite, my favorite sentence in this paragraph is after 3.1. Says scientific theory can and almost surely will one day be replaced by another. Within the realm of this aspect, you could write volumes of dramas. It's the base, because with an understanding comes a politic, and with a politic you have these established territories, and with these territories you have people willing to fight. which is always conflict is the it's the meat and potatoes of a really good story. So I'm curious to know, does this, or do you have a political mind? Or is this merely, are you giving the I don't even know if I would be using the correct word, a vanyana about your approach?
No, that's a beautiful question, Rami, because I will summarize this by saying that the secret of happiness, the secret to happiness of each individual mind is deliberate action. So this that I talk about, this abstract, subtle, ineffable, zero becoming one, one becoming zero, zero being one, one being zero, the aspectual side of reality, phenomena versus noumenon, and everything, I always take it down to the phenomenal reality. You and I, how we talk, how we cooperate, how we collaborate, how we build and create together. So to me, these conversations that are not taken to the political, I would say the hygienic side of reality, what I eat, how I eat, the exercise I do, how do I get along with you guys, how I pay my bills, how I work, how I live in society, the individual versus the collective. If I don't have this kind of trickle-down effect, then it's completely sterile. So yes, I have a political mind that applies these nonsensical, abstract, ineffable ramblings about the nature of reality into how do I live my life in the conventional sense, this from the conventional perspective. So I'm very political. I have very strong, or at least I have very clear ideas what politics should be. I analyze very, very closely the social contract. There are three thinkers that talked about the social contract. Well, I'm going to be the fourth one. I see the very, very importance of the social contract, how the individual connects to the collective and how the collective connects to the individual. And I create a yin-yang in there. What is my responsibility, my civic responsibility as an individual towards the collective that I belong to, that I play in? You know, I'm in a game of soccer. I have to play by the rules, but also I'm a thinking player. So I could say, hey, this rule here, it's not right. We should change this rule to make the game better. So I think very, very deeply about my responsibility as an individual within the collective. And I see on the other side the liability of the collective, the responsibility of the collective towards the individual. How do we marry that? And how do we create a politics, a rule of the game where the collective gets better while the individual gets better within the collective? They both, grow and become better and happier. So yes, that your question is very important to me, because at the end of the day, talking about the quantum nature of reality and defining the soul as a degree of self-awareness of the aspectual side of reality, if we are not humanly happy and thriving and sharing and growing together, we don't have a culture. Culture is very important. If we don't understand that we are, you are me, I am you, we need to cooperate, collaborate, and build an environment that is sustainable and clean and pleasant, and that helps us thrive and grow and be happier and be enlightened, all of us. And then this is wasting time.
So how was your weekend, David Norton?
My week is always sort of strange in a way, I just do my regular Uber driving. But this past week I was invited to a meetup down in Winter Park that was normally held. They used to have it at Rollins, and I had some skepticism about going, so I told the lady not that I wasn't coming, but then I changed my mind and I ended up going to this meeting.
Mm.
And there was one thing that really stood out to me that I was totally unaware of. And that is that before World War I, FDR made several encouraging speeches to the nation as President of the United States. And
Wow.
in those speeches before the war, its first was given, I believe, in January of 9th or something like that, 1941, which was 9 months before, or I think 10 months or 11 months before the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And within that, he had 4 freedoms that he stressed to the United States people, the people of the United States. And that was, one was a freedom of speech and expression. And number 2 was the freedom of worship. And number 3 was the freedom of want. And number 4 was the freedom of fear. And you know that FDR was notorious for his words, there's nothing to fear but fear itself.
Mm.
But
Yep.
The only interesting thing that came about that to me that I really question and see happening in today's world is that there was a charter, what they call it, the Atlantic Charter for NATO. Okay. And in that Atlantic Charter, there was only 2 of those freedoms that were included, which really sort of formed the Declaration of Independence for Europe and also the allied countries that made up NATO. And what those 2 were was the freedom of want and also the freedom of fear. So the thing is, I'm asking myself, how do you get a freedom of want? Is there such a thing in a person, period, because of the fact that, you know, without want, where are we? We don't have anything. It's nothing. And the thing is, they also didn't include the spirit of, or the freedom of worship. Now, the thing is, usually when people look at worship, worship is considered, you know, usually it has a religious connotation. But the thing is, actually, if you consider worship as to what true worship is, I mean, some people worship their mother, their father, their wife, their husband. Some people worship Michael Jordan or basketball, football player. And the substance of worship is actually what we actually do. So, you know, like whatever we are made up of is really what we worship. And that is pointed out biblically in, you know, the desert with Moses and how people worshiped gold and they made the golden calf and all that, rather than trying to absorb the words that they were taught. You know, so I found that very interesting because I find the division now that's going on is between NATO and the United States. And the thing is, with NATO trying to take us over through many different courses, the desire for want is there. And I look at what Louise said about wanting to have income with a standard income of $1,000 a month. Okay, if somebody would be willing to work. Well, that there is a want that, you know, provides for all the people something and takes away their worship, their freedom of worship to get what they want in any way that they possibly can. So I guess my question is there such a thing as freedom of want and freedom of fear?
Freedom of want.
Freedom of want is the question. What you're saying, freedom of want is, are we free to want stuff or to will? The freedom of will, free will. Is that what you're asking?
Well, the thing is, it's like anything else. Oftentimes, a word has 2 definitions, and if you take the word freedom of want, you know, that means the person would not want anything, therefore you would not fear anything.
Oh, freedom from wanting.
No, freedom of, say, Let me see what it says. I got it written down here. Yeah, it's freedom from want. You're right, Luis. That's the way it was. That's the way it was written. Freedom from want. Okay. So
that's a different ball of wax there.
And what about freedom of fear? Is it freedom of fear or freedom
from
fear?
Okay, it's freedom from fear.
Okay. So now the question becomes much more clear to me, because I thought they were asking, are we free to want? That's what we do all the time. We want, and are we free to be afraid? And of course, we are afraid also, because everything is. I think I've told you guys my expression that the mind is a prisoner in a dipole of between attraction and repulsion. So the attraction would be the freedom to want. I want this. I want that. I desire this, and the other one is I'm the opposite of the wanting. So when you want something, you fear the opposite, not having. Like if I want a house, it's because I want a house, because not having a house repels me. I bore the idea of not having a house or a roof over my head. So now that they changed the question is, do I have freedom not to want, and do I have the freedom not to fear? And this goes to the core of the teachings of Buddhism, and before that the teachings of Hinduism, which look at everything like a fire. The human consciousness is on fire. The eye is a fire. There's a sutra called the Fire Sutra. The eye is on fire. The touch is on fire. The tongue is on fire. The nose is on fire. So we want, we desire, we need, and that attraction, the opposite of it is the fear. So, do we have are we able to free ourselves from our wants, and are we able to free ourselves from our fears? And if you read the Four Noble Truths, which is the fundamental teaching of Buddha, is exactly what he's talking about. That life is this dipole of wanting and abhorring, and that the source of suffering is precisely that agitation of the mind that wants something and is repelled by something. And the word that he uses in that originally is tanha, which is like thirst or craving. So he contends that when we eliminate our cravings, which are made of attraction and repulsion, so it's just desire and abhorrence, we remain calm and happy, contented. So the answer to the question that was posed in that meetup, Buddha says, yes, we can be free from wanting, and we can be free from fearing.
How?
The answer to the how is spelled in the third noble truth and the fourth noble truth. So the how is when we stop wanting or fearing, then we are free from them. And then the next one is how the hell do you do that? How the hell do you stop from wanting to eat and live and have stuff and enjoy myself and belong to, you know, a relationship or a group or da-da-da? How do I stop from wanting to like myself and have self-esteem and, you know, take care of my body, my mind, and travel and know and learn and blah, 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 blah. And the fourth noble truth is the what is called the middle way, or the Eightfold Path. And that in and of itself is a whole discipline of life that has to do basically with ethics, morality, sila, meditation and mindfulness, samadhi, and ultimate transcendent wisdom, panya. So sila, samadhi, panya, which is the summary of the Eightfold Path. But if I Google this for you, because I never took the trouble of memorizing it like a student of Buddhism, because I'm not a Buddhist, it's the right thinking, the right intention, the right living, the right profession. I'm gonna spell them out for you, because that's the whole exercise of life, the whole discipline of life, which is conducive to quenching our thirst and our fears.
Okay, but the thing, I don't know, the whole thing sounds very subjective and legalistic.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
but
but if you ask me, for example, I'll say yes. That's you know, you take it or you leave it. If you ask me, does it work for you?
let me. Do you mind if I read something from Jesus Christ? And I want to take and see if you can take and correlate this to something in Buddhism, because you know Buddhism and you know that line of thought and theory and so on and so forth. But this is somewhat different to me, where and I'll point this out as I read this. What he does is comes up with a way or a how to deal with this. Okay, so let me start. Let's see, where is it? It says, "No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else will hold on to one and despise the other." He says you cannot serve God and mammon, which is actually, mammon means anything that is desired from within the self that has value. It's a person's esteem or whatever you may look at. "Therefore I say to you, take no thought of your life, of what you shall eat or what ye shall drink, nor yet your body what ye shall put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body than raiment? Watch the fowls of the air. They do not sow, neither do they reap, nor gather into their barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much better than they? Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit unto your stature? And why take thought for raiment? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say to you that even Solomon in all his glory was arrayed like one of these. Wherefore, if God so clothe the grass of the field, which today is and tomorrow is cast into the oven, how much more are you, O you of little faith? Therefore take no thought, saying, what will I eat, or what will I drink, wherewith all shall be clothed? For all these things the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father know what ye have need of, all these things. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things shall be added unto you. Take therefore no thought of tomorrow, for tomorrow will take thought of the things of itself. Sufficient to the day is the evil thereof. And then he goes on with the solution. Judge not, that you not be judged. For with the judgment you judge, you will be judged. And with the measure you judge, it will be measured back to you again. And why do you focus on the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but do not consider the beam that is in your own eye? Or how will you say to your brother, let me pull out the sliver out of your eye, and behold, the beam is in your own eye? You hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to cast out the sliver out of your brother's eye. Give not that which is holy to the dogs, neither do you cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you. And then he gives the solution, how to overcome this. Ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it will be opened unto you. For everyone that asks receives, and he that seeks finds, and to him that knocks it will be open. Or what man is there of you whom his son asks for bread, will he give him a stone? Or if he asks a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, being evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father, which is in heaven, give good things to them that ask him? Therefore all things whatsoever you would want that men should do to you, do even so to them, for this is the law and the prophets. For me, Jesus gives a solution that allows us to get answers, and that's by asking a question. It's very simple. And the thing is, through asking a question and seeking answers for ourselves, we find solutions that overcome our fears and also our wants. Once they're overcome, they no longer are a want, and they're no longer a fear. But the thing is, when mankind tries to take and provide for them through various different needs of, of people giving to an organization and then giving to people, the thing is, the person has no need to take and try to look out for himself, and to me, this is a solution that is offered, through Jesus Christ to overcome all of these little different problems that we have. Now, the only thing is, like I say, by the words that we express, we also are expressing our wants and also fears too.
Luis,
Yes.
what do you think of that? How does that compare to the Buddha's recipe? It sounds like the Buddha is giving a recipe for self-regulation, and Jesus is giving a recipe for submission to the Father, and having faith and confidence that all one's needs will be taken care of. So instead of questioning oneself interiorly, one is questioning a concept called your Father. What is that?
Well, number one, let me just say regarding that, is the thing is, when you look and define definition of Father and Father God or whatever, what he's referring to is nature. It's that simple. The thing is, he uses, because Jesus speaks in parables, okay, which is a figurative way of speaking. Okay, he's referring to nature as it exists as being the ultimate judgment in person.
Nature, not just as in Mother Nature, but also nature including society. It would have to be.
Yeah, he does that. Well, the thing is, society contains, the nature of people, versus the nature of the world that we live in. They're two different things, because people can create their own nature by the words that they use, and that there becomes a reflection when they speak of what their own worship is. I mean, like if you talk about, say, if you're somebody that's Islamic and you talk about the Quran and Muhammad and all that, okay, the thing is, that person is actually worshiping those things that come out of their mouth as part of their own being. You know, just like yourself. I mean, you guys have been focused on Buddhism, which I look at Buddhism too, to a degree, but not to the degree that you have. Okay, that there becomes a worship in its own way, even though it may not be acknowledged, of something that is worship, because you may be looking at a definition of worship of being something different. It's just like somebody, a young kid that may worship a basketball player and want to be like them. You know, the thing is, all they're going to talk about is, say, Michael Jordan or whoever it may be, and they're actually worshiping two things. Number one, basketball, and also the person that, you know, may be good at it and trying to learn from them, which is what we do when we worship something. We want to learn. Okay, it's just another nature of people, is this desire of community, of belonging, and being part of a community. It's inbred in all people. You know, just like we're all here today because we have a common interest in philosophy and trying to understand life.